Hi, my name is Jason Baker, and I teach percussion at Mississippi State University. Today I'm going to be giving a brief tutorial on the 2014 snare drum audition music for the Mississippi Lions Band. The title of the solo is Take Two by Brian Blume, and this music can be downloaded for free at misslionsband.org. Simply go onto the website, click on the audition link, scroll down the page, and you'll be able to access this music in PDF format. Hopefully you can do that before watching this video so you can follow along as I perform the piece and break down some of the sections. I'm going to start by playing the piece at its full tempo, then break down a few sections that might be a little tricky and provide some practice tips and ways to help in your preparation. And I'll conclude by giving a full performance of the piece at a slightly slower tempo that will hopefully illustrate some of the concepts that I've discussed. You'll notice that I'm playing on a practice pad, so I'm going to be leaving out the rim shots that are included in the piece. Also, my personal preference is to play using matched grip. I'm aware that the snare drummers out there are going to be playing this using traditional grip, but hopefully you'll realize the concepts that I'm discussing can apply to you regardless of which grip you prefer. The most important concept in this or any snare drum solo is proper understanding and control of rhythm. Before you apply any of the rudimental combinations of stickings, grace notes, or rolls, it's important to have a proper understanding of what the underlying rhythms are. For example, if we look at measure 12 on the first page, we see a series of flam drags followed by 32nd notes and 16th notes. I would advise you to practice this first without the accents, without the drags, simply getting an understanding of what the 16th note rhythms are leading into the 32nd notes. I'm going to slow the tempo down to 80 so we can really understand the space between those notes. Next, I'll add the accents, trying to keep the spacing of those notes in mind as I just played them. Next, I'll add the drags. Then I'll take the drags out and put in the grace notes. Then I'll combine them together, making them flam drags, but still being really careful to maintain that spacing as I just played it without the flams or without the drags. I would advise the student to work through the entire piece of music, taking each bar at a time, taking out any drags, grace notes, or paradiddle stickings, and being able to play the rhythms with a straight sticking first to get an understanding of what the spacing of the notes are in order to play in correct rhythm. Much the same way that a wind player or a vocalist should be able to hear a pitch in their head before they play it, we should be able to hear the correct rhythms in our head before we play it and before we apply any rudimental stickings or rudimental embellishments. The second passage that I'm going to discuss is perhaps one of the trickier ones in the solo. It's on the second page and is from measures 24 to 25. Here we have these transitions between various rhythms, starting with sextuplets, moving into septuplets, 7 notes per beat, into 32nd notes, and then back into sextuplets and 16th notes. As I mentioned before, it's important to understand the spacing between the notes before we add any stickings or any accents. So I'll begin by playing each rhythm by itself with a straight sticking, really trying to get a concrete understanding of the spacing between those notes. Sextuplets. Next, the septuplet. Maybe just one at a time first. Then off the left. In an odd rhythm like a septuplet, I find it's really important to understanding the spacing of the first 2 notes. Once you get the spacing of the first 2 notes, try to maintain that spacing and that hand speed across the entire rhythm. Next, the 32nd notes, just with the straight sticking first. Then off the left. And lastly, the sextuplet leading into the 16th note. Next thing I would do is go through the whole series again, now with the stickings that are written and then eventually the accents as they're written. Keeping in mind, I want to keep that same spacing that I established with the straight sticking before. Off the left hand. Then the septuplet. Off the left hand. Then I'm going to work on the transition from the sextuplets into the septuplets. Next up, the 32nd notes. You notice the tempo is still slow enough where I'm not having to use a lot of rebound. I can use an awful lot of wrist here still and really control and place each note. Doing it off the left hand. And then working on the transition, 6s, 7s into the 8s. Doing that as many times as it takes to get comfortable, even at a slower tempo, if you need to slow it down even more. And then moving from the 32nd notes, putting the brakes on when I get to the sextuplet at the very end. I really want to make sure I hear that sextuplet as a true triplet rhythm and that I'm not closing down my doubles, causing the rhythm to rush. I hope you enjoyed this video. I encourage you to contact me at the email listed on the screen. Wish you the very best of luck, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.